Audio check, check. ಒಂದೇ ಮೈಕಾ ಸೊ ನಾವು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾ ಮೈಕ್ನ ಇಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಓಕೆ ಸರಿ ಇದೆ ಓಕೆ ಶೇರ್ ದ ಮೈಕ್ Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining in. It's very heartening to see all of you here, to be very honest. I think the last one day has been extremely chaotic for us because there was a change in venue. But despite the last minute changes, we really appreciate that everyone made it, including our distinguished panelists and especially our friends from the media who are here, who are giving the issue of public bus and mobility, especially from the perspective of the bus user, as much importance as it deserves. It deserves a lot more importance if you ask me, but we'll get there during the course of this panel discussion. I will hand it over to my colleague here, Sharat. Sharat is our campaigner from Greenpeace India. I am Nishchita Virendra. I am also from the Greenpeace India team. And Sharat will quickly give us a brief on what to expect today in terms of the report launch. And then we'll get on to introducing our panelists who will be talking on the findings of the report as well as on the larger issue of how we can drive sustainable mobility, how we can drive building a city that is for all and not just for a handful few. Sharat.
Yeah, thanks Nishita. Hello everyone. I'm Sharat. I'm the climate and energy campaigner at Greenpeace. Yeah, so introducing the topic, I mean the theme of the title of our event is called Reimagining the Public Bus in Bengaluru. So basically with this event we want to imagine with all of us, I mean including us from Greenpeace and the panelists as well and as well the audience here, but also who is watching online and the public. So we want to all imagine together how we can actually see how we can look at the future of the public bus in Bengaluru. BMTC has been working in effortlessly for so many years in transporting so many millions of passengers for decades now, and they have done some wonderful work. And this is the 25th anniversary of the BMTC, and they had a important event on the Independence Day where they were promoting free bus rides for the public, and that created a lot of momentum and interest from the public as well. So so that created a discussion, and this discussion has been going on for a while. So we want to come together and see how we can discuss about public mobility, which is an important issue for all of us. So the part of this event today is we're going to launch a report. We have published a report called Bustling Through Bengaluru, and after the report launch we're going to have a panel discussion with the panelists. So Bustling Through Bengaluru report, this was done where we conduct a survey among the public users who actually use the BMTC bus with our volunteers as to help in this taking the survey. And through this survey we wanted to understand what are the experiences of the bus users, and what do they think about the bus, what is their journey on a daily basis, and how are they journeying every day by the bus, and what are the various challenges they might face, but what are the various good things they might face as well, because some of the statistics say that BMTC transports like around 30% of the population in Bengaluru, so which is a big number. So we wanted to hear what are the, all these voices of these people and see what are they talking about, what are the challenges they're facing, and based on that we made some key findings of this, and that is what we have published in this report. So this report suggests a few key findings and recommendations on how we can look and improve certain features in the public transport. And
ಮತ್ತೆ ನಾವು we will also switch to Kannada in between during the panel discussion and now. So ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಕನ್ನಡ ಬರುತ್ತಾ? ಎಷ್ಟು ಜನರು ಕನ್ನಡ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ? Okay. ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಒಂದು 50% ಜನರಿಗೂ ಅಟ್ಲೀಸ್ಟ್ ಕನ್ನಡ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೂಡ ಕೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ನಮ್ದು ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಇವತ್ತು ಹೆಂಗ್ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರನ್ನ ನಾವು ರೀಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಬಸ್ ಮೂಲಕ, ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಬಸ್ ನ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸೋ ಜನರ ಮೂಲಕ ಹೇಗೆ ಅದನ್ನ ರೀಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನ್ ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಇವತ್ತು ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಮತ್ತೆ ನಮ್ದು ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬಸ್ಸು ನಮ್ ಬಾಸ್, ನಮ್ಗೆಲ್ಲ ಗೊತ್ತು. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ 35% ಜನರು ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ನೂ ಬಸ್ ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಅದು ತುಂಬಾ ದೊಡ್ಡ ನಂಬರ್. ಸೊ ಆ 35% ಜನರನ್ನ, ಒಂದು ಪುಟ್ಟ ಭಾಗದ ಜನರನ್ನ ನಾವು ಇಂಟರ್ವ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡಿ ಈ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ನ ಲಾಂಚ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಅವರು ಯಾಕೆ ಬಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಎಷ್ಟು ಕಿಲೋಮೀಟರ್ ದಿನ ಪ್ರಯಾಣ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಏನ್ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ, ಬೇರೆ ಆಪ್ಷನ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಶಿಫ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರಾ, ಯಾವ ತರ ಅದನ್ನ ಇನ್ನೂ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಫೆಸಿಲಿಟಿ ತರ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಜನರು ಆ 35% ನ ಮುಂಚೆ 9 ವರ್ಷ ಹಿಂದೆ ಡೇಟಾ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ 50 ಲಕ್ಷ ಟ್ರಿಪ್ ಇರ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು ಡೈಲಿ ಪ್ಯಾಸೆಂಜರ್ ಟ್ರಿಪ್. ಆದ್ರೆ ಇವತ್ತು ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ 25 ಲಕ್ಷ ಟ್ರಿಪ್ಗೆ ಕೆಳಗೆ ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಯಾಕೆ ನಾವು ಇಡೀ ಒಂದು ಸಿಟಿ ಆಗಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಹೇಗೆ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು, ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಜನರು ಬಸ್ ನ ಹೇಗೆ ಪ್ರಯೋಗಿಸಬಹುದು, ಅದನ್ನ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಬಸ್ ಓಡಿಸೋ BMTC ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ನಾವು ನಾಗರಿಕರಾಗಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಇವತ್ತು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ನಾವು ಗೆಸ್ಟ್ಸ್ ನ ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಈಗ ನಮ್ಮ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಮಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಸೂರ್ಯಸೇನ್ ಅವರು BMTC ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟರ್ IT. ಸೊ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ಶರತ್ಗೆ ಹ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಓವರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ.
ಸೊ ಸೂರ್ಯಸೇನ್ ಸರ್ IT ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟರ್ BMTC ಇಂದ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅವರು ಮುಂಚೆ ಡೆಪ್ಯೂಟಿ ಕನ್ಸರ್ವೇಟರ್ ಆಫ್ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಇದ್ರು ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. And he has been doing a lot of work in promoting BMTC and the BMTC's work in public's eyes. And ಅದ 25ನೇ ಆನಿವರ್ಸರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಡಿಪೆಂಡೆನ್ಸ್ ಡೇನಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬ ಎಲ್ಲರದ್ದು ಪಾರ್ಟಿಸಿಪೇಷನ್ ಇತ್ತು. ಸೊ ಸರ್, ವೆಲ್ಕಮ್ ಟು ಅವರ್ ಇವೆಂಟ್. So next to Ashish Verma sir, Indian Institute of Science India. So he's the convener of Indian Institute of Science Sustainable Transportation Lab, and he's currently serving as the Professor of Transportation Systems Engineering at Department of Civil Engineering at Indian Institute of Science. So he has authored more than 220 research publications, including more than 86 journal publications. So some of his prominent works, he has also authored a book on public transport planning and management in development countries. And also another book on integrated public transportation system planning and modeling. So welcome sir.
Next we have Ms. Shaheen Shasa. ಅವರು almost 15 years in the 15 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ she has been a urban activist in Bengaluru. 9 years back she started the Bengaluru Bus Prayanikara Vedike, where she works with the bus users to understand how mobility can be redesigned in our city and to make it more sustainable, more accessible, eco-friendly, inclusive, everything. So Ms. Shaheen Shasa, thank you so much for joining us today. It's really nice to have you. We also have with us Mr. Srinivas Alavalli, probably one of the loudest civic voices in the city, talking about mobility issues, talking about infrastructure issues. He was one of the co-founders of Citizens for Bengaluru, and today he heads the civic participation vertical in Janagraha. There are so many things that have been written down here of what Mr. Alavalli has done. That's enough. And we really welcome you today. Thank you so much for joining us. And lastly and most importantly, ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಇರೋದು ನಮ್ದು ಯಶೋಧ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಅವರು ಫೌಂಡರ್ ಆಫ್ ಮುನ್ನಡೆ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಇದು ಫೌಂಡರ್. ಈ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ 11 ವರ್ಷ ಹಿಂದೆ in 2011 Yashoda ma'am started this group called Munnade, which literally translates to walking forward. Nearly 20 to 30,000 women from garment factories are associated with that welfare organization. And she actively works with them as to how to improve their mobility, their quality of life, their accessibility to the facilities in the city that women, especially the low-wage women, have lesser access to. And we have to acknowledge that fact. So Yashoda madam, thank you so much. Nam madhye ivattu bandidakke. Please join. And lastly, I'd like to also invite Avinash Kumar Shanchal, our climate campaign manager, to join us on the panel as well. So, Sharad, do you want to start off by talking about the key highlights from the report, and then we can launch the report?
One sec.
You want the report?
So I'll just touch upon a few key highlights of this report. Basically, I mean, so the survey talks about the survey talks about the various bus users and the characteristics initially, and depending on their age and gender. And also the key findings of this report are what is their preferred mode of commute, and what is the what is their travel time and distance which they are using on a daily basis, and the other findings are what is their mode of access. How are they going to? We are looking at the first and last mile connectivity for this. And what is the mode of access to the bus stops? Is it by cycle, rickshaw, or is it by walking, or is it by other private means of transport? And so based on these findings, so we made a few recommendations. So the recommendations we have made is how to make the buses more affordable. So some of the findings we made from this from the survey is Bangalore has some of the highest ticket fares in the country. So that is become a big issue with the public. So compared to the other cities. So how do we make? Most of the users said that we should make the ticket fares more affordable to the people and more accessible, and that is one of the key issues we are going to talk about in the panel discussion as well. And another key recommendation we have made is regarding the bus lane. Bus lane has was an important initiative to the infrastructure in the bus space, and it was launched in 2019, and there are plans for 10 more corridors apart from the corridor which is on the outer ring road. And right now there are a few challenges which the bus lane is facing. So there are other initiatives in the country as well which have talked about how bus lanes help to improve public mobility and also help to the buses to move from one place to other quickly, and also it transports a lot more people in compared to the two-wheelers and four-wheelers. So we are talking about how we can actually promote the bus lane and make it a priority, and also extend it to the other 10 corridors. And the other thing we made the recommendation is to bring more buses to the system. So right now there are 6,500 buses from the BMTC, and that is too low a number for the population of Bangalore, and it's around 0.55 for every 1,000 people. There is only 0.55 is the number of buses. So we are recommending that there should be more buses added to the fleet. And some of the other recommendations are we wanted to make it more inclusive. We are talking about how safety is a important issue with women and other communities as well. So we are seeing how buses can be made more inclusive by having low flow buses for disabled people, and I'm making bus stops and more lighting at bus stops and bus stands, and having more sensitization sessions for talking about safety for women. And another thing we are talking about is employee welfare, which we'll also touch upon in the panel discussion, where we are talking about the working conditions of the BMTC staff and how that can be improved. And since they are an important part of the fleet and important part of the public system, and how their welfare can be also looked at. And also finally we are also looking at the first and last mile connectivity, which is an important issue for all of us. I mean, we are all trying to take private transport. I mean, we are all complaining that there are no buses close to our place, and we are all trying to take private transport. So how can we look at improving the first and last mile connectivity? So these are the key findings of the report.
Yeah, I think at this point we'll start off the panel discussion. Correct me if I'm wrong, my team members, that over the next 1.5 hours we will continue the panel discussion and try to touch upon multiple issues. Next 1.5 ಗಂಟೆ ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ಈ panel discussion ನ ಓಡಿಸ್ತೀವಿ. ಅದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ಶಾರ್ಟ್ Q&A ಸೆಷನ್ ಇಟ್ಕೋತೀವಿ ಒಂದು 15-20 ನಿಮಿಷಕ್ಕೆ. ಅದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಮೀಡಿಯಾ ಪರ್ಸನ್ಸ್ ಯಾರೆಲ್ಲ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೀರಿ, ನಿಮಗೆ ಸೌಂಡ್ ಬೈಟ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲಾದ್ರೆ ಕೋಟ್ಸ್ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಪ್ಯಾನಲಿಸ್ಟ್ ಇಂದ ತಗೋಬೇಕಿದ್ರೆ you can use that time. If any of you are running late, you need it beforehand, please let us know and we'll try to arrange it to the best of our abilities. So I think the first question, we've spoken about the fact that a lot of bus users, 80% if I'm not wrong, have told that of the surveyed bus users, to be more specific, have told that they prefer bus. ಅವರು ಬಸ್ನ ಚೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡೇ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಬಸ್ಸೇ ಅನುಕೂಲವಾಗಿದೆ ಆಸ್ ಅ ಚಾಯ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಮೊಬಿಲಿಟಿ. So from what is the vision really that we have for the city of Bengaluru when we're talking about sustainable city, when we're talking about sustainable mobility, what does it really mean for us? You know, ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬರಿಗೂ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮೊಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಂತ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಬೇರೆನೇ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಒಬ್ಬೊಬ್ಬರಿಗೆ ಹೊಸ ಕಾರ್ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ, ದೊಡ್ಡ ಕಾರ್ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಅದೇ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಮೊಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಅಚೀವ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ಬರಿಗೆ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಓಡಿಸಿದ್ರೆ ಮೊಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಅಚೀವ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಒಬ್ಬೊಬ್ಬರಿಗೆ ಒಂದೊಂದು ವಿಷನ್ ಇದೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ BMTCದು ಏನ್ ವಿಷನ್ ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೇಳ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಸೂರ್ಯಸೇನ್ ಅವರು ನಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಸರ್, ಇಫ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸ್ಪೀಕ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ದ ಮೈಕ್, ದ ಲೈವ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮಿಂಗ್ ಆಡಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ.
BMTC ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿ 25 ವರ್ಷ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಲೈಕ್ ವಾಟ್ ಶರತ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಟೋಲ್ಡ್, but it is not 25 years. It was existing from a long time. So it was as BTS, it was as something else. So it is not new to any city or any state in the country, or for that matter for the human race itself, because the buses evolved with the humans as of now. So throughout the world, if you see, the buses are very, very affordable, very easy to catch, or very, very accessible to the public. So that is how the buses are placed in the human life. So even in BMTC, that is the same thing, that is the same fact for Bangalore also. So BMTC's vision is very simple. We need to give affordable public transport. We need to give it to everybody. We need to make it accessible to everybody. At the same time, since it is a public owned company, so there is a mandate which is given by the government to us, that we need to self-sustain. So again, sustainability of the organization also will come into picture. So that is where the challenge is coming in. So one side we talk about the services, one side we talk about the sustainability of the organization. So the vision of BMTC has both in its priority. So now we have to tread that line very carefully. So we can't go either way deviating, and we need to finally achieve the common benefit or common target, what I say. So that is how we are placed as of now, after 25 years of our BMTC also. Yeah.
ಯಶೋಧ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್, ನಾನು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಕೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ನೀವು ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಾ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ 80-90% ನಿಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡೋ ಹೆಂಗಸರು ಅವರೆಲ್ಲ ಬಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋರೇ ಇರೋದು. ಒಂದು 10% ಮೇ ಬಿ ಬಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ, ಬೇರೆ ಏನೋ ಮೊಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಮೂಲಕ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಈಗ ಬಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾವ ತರ ಬೆನಿಫಿಟ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ, ಯಾವ ತರ ಚಾಲೆಂಜಸ್ ಇದೆ? ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಒಂದು ಹೆಂಗಸರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ನೀವು ಮಾತಾಡ್ಬೋದಂದ್ರೆ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಾ?
ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಒಂದೇನಂತಂದ್ರೆ 80% ಬಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ನಾನು ಹೇಳಕ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದು 80% ಟೈಮ್ ಅಂತ. ಒಂದು 40% ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಇವತ್ತು ಗಾರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು 5 ಲಕ್ಷ ಜನ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು 40% ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು BMTC ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆ BMTC ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ಏನಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮೈನ್ ರೋಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ನಾನು ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಒಂದು 2-3 ಏರಿಯಾಗಳನ್ನ ನಾನು ಹೆಸರಿಸಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಗೆ ನಮಗೆ ಶ್ರೀನಗರ ತುಂಬಾ ಫೇಮಸ್ ಏರಿಯಾ, ನೀವು ಕೇಳಿದ್ದೀರಾ. ಹನುಮಂತ ನಗರ, ಶ್ರೀನಗರ, ಮುನೇಶ್ವರ ಬ್ಲಾಕು, ಅವಳಹಳ್ಳಿ ಈ ಏರಿಯಾದಿಂದ ವರ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ವುಮೆನ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಜನ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ. ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರಿ ಲೊಕೇಟ್ ಆಗಿರೋದು ಯಾವ ಕಡೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ ಪೀಣ್ಯ ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರಿಯಲ್ ಏರಿಯಾಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು, ಅಥವಾ ನಮಗೆ RV ಕಾಲೇಜ್ ನಿಯರ್ RV ಕಾಲೇಜಲ್ಲಿ ಗಾರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟರಿಗಳಿದೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಾವಿರಾರು ಜನ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡೋ ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರೀಸ್. ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು ಬರ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ 1-1.5 ಕಿಲೋಮೀಟರ್ ನಡೆದು ಸ್ಯಾಟಲೈಟ್ ಬಸ್ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಸ್ ಹತ್ತಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಅವರು RV ಕಾಲೇಜ್ ಹತ್ರ ಬರಬೇಕು, ಮತ್ತೆ ರಾತ್ರಿ ಇಳಿದು ಅದೇ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು. ಅವಾಗ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಲೋಕಲ್ ಆಟೋಗಳ ಮೇಲೆ ಅಥವಾ ಲೋಕಲ್ ಗೂಡ್ಸ್ ಗಾಡಿಗಳ ಮೇಲೆ ಅವರು ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಆಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಇದು ಸರ್ವಿಸ್ ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ಸಿಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅದು ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಏನಂದ್ರೆ ಮೈನ್ ರೋಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇವಾಗ ನಾಯಂಡಹಳ್ಳಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಕೆಂಗೇರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದು ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ ರಾಜರಾಜೇಶ್ವರಿ ನಗರದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲವು ಏರಿಯಾಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಗಾರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ವರ್ಕರ್ಸ್ ಲೊಕೇಟ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅಲ್ಗೆ ಒಡೆರಳ್ಳಿ, ಪಟ್ಟಣಗೆರೆ ಇಂಥ ಕಡೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು ಬರ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಅವರು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಸ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ, ಶ್ರೀನಗರದಿಂದ ಇದೆ, ಅವರು ಮೆಜೆಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಕಡೆಗಿದೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರಿ ಲೊಕೇಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಆ ಕಡೆಗೆ ಕನೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಬಸ್ಗಳು. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಬಸ್ಸಸ್ ಇದೆ, ರಾಜರಾಜೇಶ್ವರಿ ನಗರದಲ್ಲಿ ಡಿಪೋ ಇದೆ, ತುಂಬಾ ಬಸ್ಸಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಅವ್ರು ಬಸ್ ಹತ್ತಿ ಬರ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಮಿನಿಮಮ್ ವೇಜಸ್ ಇವತ್ತು 140 ರೂಪೀಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಅವ್ರು ಬಸ್ ಹತ್ತಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ರಾಜರಾಜೇಶ್ವರಿ ಗೇಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಳಿಬೇಕು, ಮತ್ತೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಬಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹತ್ತಬೇಕು, ಮತ್ತೆ ಹೋಗುವಾಗ ಬರುವಾಗ ಸೇರಿ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲಿಂಗ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ 40 ರೂಪೀಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅಟ್ಲೀಸ್ಟ್ ವಾಕ್ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಅವರು ಮಿನಿಮಮ್ ಆಟೋದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, 6 ಜನ 7 ಜನ 10 ಜನ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸೇರಿ ತುಂಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ ಆಟೋಗಳು. ಆಕ್ಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ಗಳು ನೋಡ್ತಾನೆ ಇದೀವಿ. ಅವಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಮಧ್ಯ ದಾರಿಯಿಂದ 1-1.5 ಕಿಲೋಮೀಟರ್ 2 ಕಿಲೋಮೀಟರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ ರೀಚ್ ಆಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಅವರು ಬಸ್ಸಲ್ಲೇ ಬರ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ತರ 6 ಕಿಲೋಮೀಟರ್ ಸುತ್ತಕೊಂಡು ಬರಬೇಕು. ಈ ತರವಾದ ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಸರಿಯಾದಂತದ್ದು ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ಇರೋದು ಕೂಡ ಬಸ್ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಜನರಿಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಇನ್ನು 40% ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಮೈನ್ ರೋಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋಂತ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗಿ BMTC ಬಸ್ ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ.
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಮೇಡಮ್. ನೀವು ಎಲ್ಲ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ರಿ, ಗಾರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ವರ್ಕರ್ಸ್ ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಬಗ್ಗೆ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಆಕ್ಸೆಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ, ಅವ್ರ ಅಫೋರ್ಡಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆ. ಸೊ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಇಶ್ಯೂಸ್. ಸೊ ಶೈನ್ ಮೇಡಮ್ಗೂ ಕೇಳಬೇಕಾಯ್ತು. ಸೊ ಶೈನ್, ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಯು ಟಚ್ ಅಪಾನ್, ಐ ಮೀನ್ madam touched upon a few issues like affordability, access and connectivity and everything, and you have been talking about these challenges as important issues which are there. So can you touch upon these things and elaborate more on this?
ಸೊ ಯಶೋಧ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಹೇಳೋ ತರ ನಾವು ಅವರು ಒಂದು ಕೆಲವು ಏರಿಯಾಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಬಟ್ ಇದೇ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆಗಳು ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಕಡೆ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೇನು ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಇದೆ. ನಾವು ಈಗ ವೈಟ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ಈಸ್ಟ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಸಾದರಮಂಗಲ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಚನ್ನಸಂದ್ರ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ನಾವು ಸಿಟಿ ಒಳಗಡೆ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ LB ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರಿ ನಗರ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಇನ್ನು ಅಗೇನ್ ಔಟ್ಸ್ಕರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಹರ್ಲೂರು, ಕಸವನಹಳ್ಳಿ, ಆ ತರ ಏರಿಯಾಸ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ತುಂಬಾ ಕಡೆ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಈ ತರ ಪಾಕೆಟ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಕಡೆನೂ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಜನ ಹೋಗೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲಿ, ನಾವು ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಕೊಡೋದು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮೇನ್ ರೋಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಕಡೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ ಬಸ್ ಸರ್ವಿಸಸ್. ದೊಡ್ಡ ಫ್ರೀಕ್ವೆನ್ಸಿಯಲ್ಲಿ, ಹೈ ಫ್ರೀಕ್ವೆನ್ಸಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬಸ್ಸಸ್ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ ನಮಗೆ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಮೇನ್ ರೋಡ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ. ಬಟ್ ಮೇನ್ ರೋಡ್ ಅವ್ರು ಮೇಡಮ್ ಹೇಳತಾರ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಮೇನ್ ರೋಡ್ ಅಕ್ಕಪಕ್ಕ ಇರಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಇರೋರು ಹೇಗೆ ಮೇನ್ ರೋಡ್ ತನಕ ಬರೋದು, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಈಗಲೂ ಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಬರೀ ಕೆಲವು ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟೀಸ್ಗೆ, ಕೆಲವು ಏರಿಯಾಸ್ಗೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಇಡೀ ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ, ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಇದೆ ಅದು. ಮತ್ತೆ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಹೇಳತಾರ ಅಗೇನ್ ಅಫೋರ್ಡಬಿಲಿಟಿ, ಅವರು ಗಾರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ವರ್ಕರ್ಸ್ ಕಾಂಟೆಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಬಟ್ ನಾವು ಇಡೀ ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಕೂಡ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಸೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡೋರಿಗೆ ಬರೋ ಸಂಬಳ, ಆಲ್ದೋ ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರ್ ಒಂದು IT ಕಂಪನಿ ಇರೋ ಸಿಟಿ, IT ಸಿಟಿ, BT ಸಿಟಿ ಅಂತೆಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಆ ತರ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಯಾಟಗರಿ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ತುಂಬಾ ಅರ್ನ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಯಾಟಗರಿ ಇದೆ. ಬಟ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅವರ ಮಿನಿಮಮ್ ವೇಜಸ್ ಮಂತ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಒಂದು 7,000, 8,000, 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 ರೇಂಜ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ. ಆ ರೇಂಜ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋರು ತಿಂಗಳಿಗೆ 1,000 ರೂಪೀಸ್ ಬಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಖರ್ಚು ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಮಂತ್ಲಿ ಪಾಸ್ 1,050 ರೂಪೀಸ್. ಸೊ ಈವನ್ ಆವರೇಜ್ ಟ್ರಿಪ್ ಡಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೂ ಖರ್ಚಾಗೋದು 800,000 ರೂಪೀಸ್ ಮಂತ್ಲಿ ಒಬ್ಬರಿಗೆ ಖರ್ಚಾಗುತ್ತೆ. 20 ರೂಪೀಸ್ 30 ರೂಪೀಸ್ ಡೈಲಿ ಖರ್ಚು ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ. ಸೊ ಆತರ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಈ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಇದು ಅಫೋರ್ಡಬಲ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಅಗೇನ್ ಒಂದು ವರ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ಗೆ ಅಥವಾ ಒಂದು ಸೆಕ್ಟರ್ಗೆ ಸೀಮಿತವಲ್ಲ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆನೂ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಫೇಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋ ಇಶ್ಯೂ. ಕೋವಿಡ್ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ, ಕೋವಿಡ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಇದು ಇನ್ನೂ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಯ್ತು ಈ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್. ತುಂಬಾ ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಹೋಯ್ತು, ಅವರ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಕೆಲಸಗಳು ಮುಂಚೆ ತರ ಸಿಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಆ ಒಂದು ಸಿಚುವೇಶನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಫೋರ್ಡಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಹಸ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ ಈವನ್ ಬಿಗರ್ ಅನ್ ಇಶ್ಯೂ. ಸೊ ಇದು ಎರಡು ಸಮಸ್ಯೆಗಳಿದೆ. ಅದು ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಾವು ಸೊ ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಒಳಗಡೆನೆ 2-3 ತರ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆಗಳು ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಒಂದು ಇವರು ಹೇಳೋ ತರ ಒಳಗಡೆಯಿಂದ ಮೇನ್ ರೋಡ್ ಬರೋದು, ಎಷ್ಟು ದೂರ ನಾವು ನಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾವ ತರ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. ತುಂಬಾ ಕಡೆ ಈಗ ಜನ ಶೇರ್ ಆಟೋ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಬಟ್ ಶೇರ್ ಆಟೋ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಡಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ 10 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಖರ್ಚು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಅದು ನಮ್ಮ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಮೇನ್ ರೋಡ್ ಹೋಗಿ ಬಸ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ 10 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಖರ್ಚು ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ 20 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಆಯ್ತು. ಸೊ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಹೌ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಮೈಲ್ ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಜನ ಎಷ್ಟು ಕಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದು ಮತ್ತೆ 2 ಕಿಲೋಮೀಟರ್ ನಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅಷ್ಟು ಟೈಮ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಒಂದು ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಇರೋದು ಇದು ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಮೈಲ್ ಮೇನ್ ರೋಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗೋದು ಹೇಗೆ ಅಂತ, ಅಥವಾ ಬಸ್ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ತನಕ ಹೋಗೋದು ಹೇಗೆ ಅಂತ. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಇರೋದು ಎಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಏರಿಯಾಸ್ ಇಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಮೆಜೆಸ್ಟಿಕ್ಗೆ, ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ಗೆ, ಶಿವಾಜಿನಗರ್ಗೆ ಬಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ. ಬಟ್ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಹೋಗೋದು ಮೆಜೆಸ್ಟಿಕ್, ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್, ಶಿವಾಜಿನಗರ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಅಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಹೇಳೋ ತರ ಪೀಣ್ಯ ಹೋಗೋರು ಇದಾರೆ, ಮೈಸೂರು ರೋಡ್ ಹೋಗೋರು ಇದಾರೆ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕಡೆ ಹೋಗೋರಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ನಮ್ಮ ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಈಗಲೂ ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಪೆರಿಫರಿಯಿಂದ ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಬರೋ ತರ ಇದೆ. ಬಟ್ ನಾವು ಸೊ ಈಗ ನಾನು ಮಾರಥಹಳ್ಳಿಯಿಂದ ಇಂದಿರಾನಗರ್ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಈಸಿಯಾಗಿ ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಅಥವಾ ಇದು ಸರ್ಜಾಪುರ ರೋಡ್, ಹರ್ಲೂರ್ ಏರಿಯಾ ಅಂತ ಕಾಕ್ಸ್ಟೌನ್ ಬರ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಬಸ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಅದು ಒಂದು ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಇಶ್ಯೂ. ನಾವು ತುಂಬಾ ಸಲ ಬಸ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಟೈಮ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದೊಂದು ಬಸ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಮಿನಿಮಮ್ 10 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಖರ್ಚು ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ 2 ಬಸ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಆಟೋಮ್ಯಾಟಿಕಲಿ ಡಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇದ್ರೂ 20 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಆಯ್ತು ಆಟೋಮ್ಯಾಟಿಕಲಿ. ಸೊ ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿಗೆ ಇದು ಒಂದು ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ. ನಾವು ಇದನ್ನ ಸಿಂಪ್ಲಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದಾ? ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದನೂ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕಡೆ ಹೋಗಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಬಸ್ ಕೊಡಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ, ಆಬ್ವಿಯಸ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಇಂದ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಬಸ್ ಹೋಗಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಬಟ್ ಈ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನ ಸಿಂಪ್ಲಿಫೈ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು? ನಾವು ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಇಳಿದು ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕಡೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಂತ 1 ಕಿಲೋಮೀಟರ್ ನಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು, ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಬಸ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇದು ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಮತ್ತೆ ನಾವು ಯಾವ ತರ ಬಸ್ಸಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ? ಕೆಲವು ನಮಗೆ ಈಗ ಇರೋ ಬಸ್ಸಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಬಸ್ಸಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಒಳಗಡೆ ನಾವು ಇನ್ನರ್ ರೋಡ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ನ್ಯಾರೋ ರೋಡ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಸ್ಸಸ್ ಓಡಿಸಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಮಿನಿ ಬಸ್ಸಸ್ ಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಇಂಪ್ರೂವ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಅದರದ್ದು ಹಲವಾರು ಡೈಮೆನ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಟೈಮ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದು, ಎಷ್ಟು ಟೈಮ್ ತಗೊಳುತ್ತೆ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲ್. ಅದು ಸೇಮ್ ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಇದೆ, ಇನ್ ಅ ವೇ ಕನೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಇದೆ. ನಾವು 2 ಕಿಲೋಮೀಟರ್ ನಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇನ್ ದ ಚೇಂಜ್ಗೆ ಇನ್ನು 1 ಕಿಲೋಮೀಟರ್ ನಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಬಸ್ಸಸ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಬಸ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದು ಅಗೇನ್ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಬಸ್ಸು ಇರೋದು 6,000 ಬಸ್ಸು, ಅದು ಬೇರೆ ಗಾಡಿಗಳು ಇರೋದು ಲಕ್ಷಾಂತರ. ಸೊ ಅಷ್ಟು ಲಕ್ಷ ಗಾಡಿಗಳ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಸ್ ಇಷ್ಟು ಎಫಿಷಿಯಂಟ್ ಇದ್ರೇನು ಅದು ಸ್ಲೋ ಆಗೋದು ಕಾರಣ ಬೇರೆ ಗಾಡಿಗಳು. ಬಟ್ ನಾವು ಬಸ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಇಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಬಟ್ ಬಸ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಆ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಾಮುಖ್ಯ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ಮ ಸಿಟಿ ಪ್ಲಾನಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಸೊ ಬಸ್ಗೆ ಆ ಒಂದು ಜಾಗ ರೋಡಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದ್ರೆ, ಬಸ್ ಲೈನ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮೇನ್ ರೋಡಲ್ಲೂ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದ್ರೆ ಬಸ್ ಫಾಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೋಗ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ಬಸ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ನಾವು ಎನ್ಕರೇಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಇದು ಒಂದು ಮುಖ್ಯ ನೀಡ್. ನಾವು ಹೇಗೆ ಬಸ್ಗೆ ಪ್ರಾಮುಖ್ಯ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ ರೋಡ್ ಟ್ರಾಫಿಕ್ ಪ್ಲಾನಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ರೋಡ್ ಪ್ಲಾನಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ರೋಡ್ ಡಿಸೈನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಫ್ಲೈಓವರ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಟ್ರೆ ಬಸ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಓಡಾಡೋರಿಗೆ ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ನಾವು ಬಸ್ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಬಸ್ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಹಾಕೋದು? ಫ್ಲೈಓವರ್ ಮುಂದೆ ಹಾಕ್ತೀರಾ, ಹಿಂದೆ ಹಾಕ್ತೀರಾ, ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕ್ತೀರಾ, ಎಲ್ಲಿ? ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ಸ್ ಎ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಫಾರ್ ಬಸ್ ಕಮ್ಯೂಟರ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಬಟ್ ನಾವು ಸಿಟಿ ಡಿಸೈನ್ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಬಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಪ್ರಾಮುಖ್ಯ ಕೊಡಲ್ಲ. ಗಾಡಿಗಳು, ಕಾರುಗಳು, 2 ವೀಲರ್ಗಳು ವಿತೌಟ್ ಎನಿ ಬ್ಲಾಕ್ ಹೇಗೆ ಹೋಗೋದು ಅಂತಾನೆ ನಮ್ ಥಿಂಕಿಂಗ್ ಈಗಲೂ. ಬಟ್ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಬಸ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಹೇಗೆ ಪ್ರಾಮುಖ್ಯ ಕೊಡ್ಬೋದು ಅಂತ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಹಲವಾರು ಸಮಸ್ಯೆಗಳು ನಾವು ಅಡ್ರೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ಮತ್ತೆ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದನೂ ಬಸ್ ಒಂದು 500 ಮೀಟರ್ಸ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಆಕ್ಸೆಸ್ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಈ ತರ ನಾವು ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ನ ಡಿಸೈನ್ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ನ ಡಿಸೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ, ಬಸ್ಗೆ ಪ್ರಾಮುಖ್ಯ ಕೊಟ್ರೆ ಸುಲಭವಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲ್ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆಗಳು ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅಷ್ಟೇ.
Some really important points that Ms. Shaheen actually spoke about. Like, she spoke about the connectivity of the buses and how a lot of the buses focus on the connectivity to the central part of the city. But there are a lot of commuters, especially people from the low wage earning communities who are entirely dependent on the public transport network to reach their destinations, which might be in PNR or farther away. So connectivity is one issue, and also feeder services for the buses, for those to encourage usage of buses, whether it is e-rickshaws or whether it is smaller buses, mini buses. I believe that Mr. Suryasen recently in a press article also was quoted saying that BMTC is in the process of having smaller buses that will act as feeder buses, but that has been a fairly challenging model for Bangalore to deal with. A lot of the buses do not enter the smaller lanes, that reduces connectivity. And also the aspect of the prominence that is given to buses vis-a-vis other mobility infrastructure, whether it is some fancy elevated corridor project or whether it is any other form of big budget, big ticket projects, as opposed to that the kind of prominence that is given to buses in terms of budgeting, in terms of the increasing the fleet size. So you have about 6,700 odd buses that are actually struggling to on the same spaces, on the same roads where you have 80 lakh to 1 lakh crore private vehicles also plying. So that is a legitimate challenge that has been pointed out, and that brings me to Dr. Ashish Verma. Actually, he has been someone who has repeatedly told this one sentence, and that has stuck in my head. He has said that the streets should help people commute and not vehicles commute. So, Dr. Ashish Verma, if you pick up from where Ms. Shaheen left, and what you have to add to that.
Thanks. So I think first thing we have to understand is, why we promote public transport. And here today we are talking about bus transport. What is so important, unique or useful about public transport that makes us push for it? One is, on the fundamental aspect, one is it occupies much lesser space per passenger it carries, and it emits much less tailpipe emissions if it is running on diesel per passenger it carries as compared to car or two-wheeler or any other personal mobility modes that you think about. So these are the two fundamental concepts or the benefits that we get from public transport. Specifically here today we are talking about bus transport, because of which we are trying to do everything to push buses or public transport as a preferred mode, a preferred choice of commuters, a large section of commuters. If we really were to imagine Bengaluru as a sustainable system, public transport, sustainable mobility system, and a better livable city, or a city with higher quality of life for citizens, we should aim to achieve by say 2030 at least 80% mode share, trip mode share of public transport, buses and the other public transport modes. Bus would of course have a larger share, and walking and cycling together. At least 80%. You go around and see any global city that aims to become sustainable or improve the livability of the city, and I keep giving examples of two cities to compare, which is kind of an apple to apple comparison. If we were to compare Bengaluru, one is London, other is Paris. Why? Because both of them have got almost same population as Bengaluru, and their geographical scale and extent of the city is also similar as Bengaluru. So it's in many ways a similar kind of city and structure that we are comparing. Now, if you see the supply and extent of public transport services that are already available in city like London or Paris, it's much higher than what we have in Bengaluru on any count. So unless you don't have a supply, as Shaheen was saying, that people commute from one point in the city to other point, and they may have to transfer multiple times, to change routes, etc., pick up. Every transfer for a commuter from one route to the other or one bus to the other is a penalty to the commuter from using public transport, from using buses. So one is how much you minimize transfer and how much you make these transfers as seamless experience as possible, because of course transfer is inevitable. You can't think about a point-to-point network public transport system for the whole city of this scale. A smaller city it may be possible. So transfers are inevitable. There's something called as point-to-point network on which presently we operate, versus what we call it as hub and spoke network. Now you have these TTMCs that you can actually make use of as a hub and spoke model, something we also researched on it. The bottom line is, how do you optimize and reduce these penalties for using public transport scientifically? So in your recommendation, as I saw, you have talked about adding more buses. Definitely it's required. Our fleet size has remained stagnant. The overall net number has remained stagnant for decades now. Whereas the population has not remained stagnant. Population is just growing exponentially. So that means we are, with every passing year, we are further undersupplying public transport than what actually we should be doing is reverse. We should be increasing that. So while you add many more buses, they certainly need to be rationalized in terms of their operations, in terms of their routes and schedule. Thinking about a last mile for buses, in my opinion, should only be walk and cycle. You should have a bus stop within, say, few meters, 10 meters or 20. I mean, it's a standard that we have to pick up within that many meters of walking distance of any location. Thinking about a feeder mode for a bus will not going to work, because again it's going to induce another transfer. So the network of the bus services plus the frequency of services, and that's again there is a question of the type of buses, the size of buses. Okay, you need to have a combination of that, so that on certain routes where demand is higher, you run these big standard size buses. On other routes where you have smaller demand, you run smaller size buses. But at the end, ensure that you have a bus service within few meters of your home or destination where you have to travel. This is how you will make it attractive. So I don't think we should think about putting another feeder mode for bus services. Buses may act as a feeder to metro or to suburban rail services. That's a different thing, but not a feeder mode for buses except walk or at the most cycle. The other thing is, as I said, it occupies least space, road space per passenger it carries. And that's why we keep saying give priority for movement of buses, because it is a space efficient mode. Now unfortunately in India, and if you look at the examples of different cities of how they have introduced these bus priority lanes and BRTS system, we have actually not understood the concept. The civic bodies have not understood the concept of bus priority completely. We think that this as a right of way intervention, right of way engineering interventions, that where is the space to accommodate one different lane for buses. And so we tend to look around those roads where demand may not be high, but the road is wide enough. And there are several examples across the Indian cities where this approach has been used, and we hardly see any use of those. The other thing is, after you put bus lanes, you forget that the bus priority is a operational intervention also. It is not just about keeping a space aside. Now you create a lane and let one bus comes after 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Then you have not understood the concept of bus priority lane. What is the supply of the capacity, which comes only by you have a much frequent services, because the idea of bus priority lane is that buses should be able to travel faster and reliably, so that you can increase the frequency of the buses. Now if you increase the frequency, that's how you will increase the person capacity, the passenger capacity that we keep talking about, so this will reduce the waiting time for passengers who want to take a bus on the bus priority lane. So it is not just an engineering intervention. So that's where in India, in most of the cities, we have failed to understand this concept of bus priority in totality. Other thing is, the bus priority, idea of bus priority is much beyond just giving a lane for buses. It's an idea that we have to think further beyond. For example, employer-based incentives for those who are using public transport. Every employer gives some kind of transport allowance or petrol allowance and those things. Can you not rethink in a way that you encourage your employees to use public transport by giving those allowances in a way that they are pushed to use public transport? Restrict Yeah, of course. And probably, give additionally for your family also free to encourage, yeah. Plus you restrict, say, parking spaces in your premises for your employer. Make it very costly. Charge for it. So there are some carrots and there are some sticks. This is another way you are actually prioritizing public transport. Yeah, tying up with educational institutes, colleges, schools. Let students take the passes as a compulsory part of their fees, that the college collects. So you get a, audience. Otherwise, many of those students will switch to two-wheeler, or other, personal vehicle. Many countries you will see public transport authorities do tie up with institutions and make these kind of arrangements. Other is, how do you incentivize the miles people are traveling on public transport? Now, when we have, Bangalore is a tech city. There is no dearth of, talent to develop such a mechanism through which you can track the miles of people traveling on public transport, and we can have hundreds of ways to incentivize this, just like a credit card, point system or a frequent flyer point system. When you, every time you travel on a flight, can you not develop a public transport, point system? And then, everybody can give different kinds of, discounts. You go to outlet, they may give you some off and so on. So again, I'm saying is public transport priority is a much broader notion that we have to, tap to really make a holistic attractiveness for people to use. I've spoken too much, but maybe I'll come back later on. There's some idea about bus priority week. That we actually, I actually talked about this February when we had this public forum meeting of BBPB. You need, live test beds to basically demonstrate the effectiveness of such ideas of priority. So my idea is for one full week, can we do an extensive bus priority week over the whole Bengaluru, and then document scientifically the impacts and the results and the people's experience, so that we have hard evidences that we can take it to the government later on. This is something, all of us need to think. I'm sure Greenpeace can also pitch in and take this idea forward. I'll be happy to share the concept note, which earlier, I think in February or March itself, I had submitted formally to both BMTC as well as DOLT. I hope they will take it up some or the other time.
The bus priority week will be.
So the idea of bus priority week was that for one full week, every road in the Bengaluru which has got at least 2 lanes for each side should reserve 1 lane for buses. Some of the roads where bus movements are high or the width is restricted, make them bus only lanes.
Bus only roads.
Bus only roads. Also make the public transport free. Let the state government bear the cost of that for the whole 1 week. Make it free so that maximum and more people can use it. Okay. Also run this incentive schemes. If somebody go to outlet and show the public transport ticket that they've traveled by it, they can offer some discounts. So, government can tie up with, say, restaurants, food outlets, retail shops, etc., so that they also encourage in this. So this whole 1 week becomes a holistic implementation of this bus priority concept in its totality, and we do a thorough scientific assessment where a research lab like ours can pitch in, not just about how quantified parameters of travel time, reliability, cost, etc. are being taken care and have improved before and after, but also, understanding and taking the feedbacks of passengers during that through various ways, not just surveys, but also social media feeds, etc., doing sentiment analysis and things like that, and document it similar to way, how we did for Church Street pedestrianization test bed. So that would then become a hard evidence, a hard report with clear evidences and a tangible understanding to several stakeholders. BMTC will also understand how much of operational efficiency they are able to improve by such measures being in place at the network level. not just, one lane on outer ring road or somewhere and so on. It doesn't really add much value. So that's the whole idea. But I'll be happy to share whosoever wants to see this concept now. Thank you.
Right, absolutely. I think one of the issues that we also discuss in our team meetings is that how to incentivize bus travel and disincentivize private transport travel. For the last 3 to 4 months, we have been running a petition in, demanding that the bus priority lane along outer ring road be protected, be retained, and also be extended as it has been promised in the CMP. But the kind of backlash that we have been receiving, especially on the digital platforms, is overwhelming sometimes. So I'll bring that question to Mr. Srinivas Alavalli. So you've been techie in the past, and I know that it's not the same thing to ask this question to you just because you've been a techie in the past, but I'm just asking that how can we look at making bus travel as attractive to a young professional in a city like Bangalore as, aspiring to buy a car or owning a car?
Sure. Thank you, and thank you Greenpeace for doing this. You rarely have bus events in the city, right? Their report shows that 3.6 million trips are being made in the city with bus. That's let's say a trip is a point A to point B, right? If you do point B to point A, that's another trip. So that means 1.8 million people are using it roughly. That is 18 lakh people are using the bus. For that kind of user base, the organization of that user base is practically non-existent. We all know that our politics entirely revolves around vote banks. If we were to look around Bengaluru as a set of vote banks, this caste, that religion, I think bus users will be one of the biggest caste or biggest vote banks. And yet the politicians don't look at it like that. They don't care about it. They don't respond to that vote bank. So therefore, I think events like this will kind of help organize this vote bank. I think we should use that word also, that it's a vote bank. The bus users should be defined formally as a vote bank and communicated to the political leaders of the state that are in the decision making. I will respond to what I was asked about, but a couple of things that occur to me as I hear Professor Ashish and Mr. Surya and Shaheen, we all have done so many campaigns. I think in this room, for example, almost everybody agrees that public transport is very important. Anybody denies? Any climate change deniers or supporters of cars or private mode of transport here? No, right? I would think so. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here to begin with. So this is what is, sometimes referred to as preaching to the choir, right? So we have to think about, okay, whatever Professor Ashish Verma said, and he has opened our eyes. Actually, it occurred to me that, day after tomorrow is 16th of October. Do you know what the significance of the date is? Does anyone know this? Okay. The steel flyover Beda was on 16th of, any of you were there on that day? 16th October? They are now taking it up again. Yeah. So, when we did the steel flyover Beda campaign to stop the flyover, 8,000 people came to the protest. Okay, and the result we know, they kind of formally closed the project, right? Now, less than a month later, we did a Chukubuku Beku campaign, which is for suburban train. Guess how many people showed up for that? Big number, but 1/4 of the flyover, 2,000 people came. That was in November 2016. In February 2017, with Bus Pranikar Vedike, we did a campaign called Bus Bhagya Beku. Same concept, mobilizing public for bus. Guess how many people showed up? 1,000. So from 8,000 we went to 2,000 to 1,000. How many people use flyover? How many people use train? How many people use bus? But the number of people standing up for the bus is very small. So this is, I think, is a single biggest problem that we have, right? Because moving people, not vehicles, is a universally accepted science. It's a mobility science. Who is the enemy of science? None of us are enemy of science. But politicians are enemies of science or politics. Let's remove the individual aspect to it. Why politicians don't like science? because it cuts through their model of operation. What happens if there is beautiful public transport in Bangalore? There will be less number of private vehicles sold and less amount of petrol and diesel sold. Less infrastructure needed, less concrete need to be poured. And we all know about the various issues around that. If the government, we talk about incentivizing techies or somebody else to take the bus. How do we incentivize government to use the bus? I think this is the biggest challenge. The government is entirely 100% incentivized not to use public transport. Because when you buy a vehicle, you are going to get lifetime tax, road tax, this tax, that tax, whole bunch of taxes will come. Yes? Huge source of revenue. From the day you buy the car, every single time you visit a petrol bunk, who is getting the tax? So this is like a tap of ongoing continuous source of income, and then you are saying reduce that and improve public transport. Now if any of you are CM or any transport minister, anything, I don't know if you will do it either. Let's be very honest, right? Or you will do it and next day you will be out of the office. That might also happen. So therefore I think the politicians or the decision makers at the highest levels need to be incentivized to understand that if you go on this road, there will be nothing to mine. Nobody will be able to buy any more petrol because they are all stuck in the traffic anyway. So they can't even go to the petrol bunk. You buy the car, there is no place to park it. So you are not going to buy it. So that situation is going to come. In computer science operating systems term, that's called thrashing. You do so much work, the computer is working, suddenly it hangs, right? You've seen a blue screen of death or a computer hanging. That means that the computer is trying to do too many things and they are all competing for the memory, for the processor time, that they are all stuck. Deadlock. That technical feature is going to happen in the real life roads of Bengaluru, which actually happens today at Silk Road or Outer Ring Road or many other places where a 2-kilometer distance takes 45 minutes. And the same people that are stuck in the thing are saying there's too much traffic. If only they remove the bus lane, I can go faster. Right? This is the biggest thing. Yesterday, because there was another traffic jam in Outer Ring Road, somebody tweeted that we need to get more buses on Outer Ring Road. So I in my rhetorical way said, we need to bring the bus lane back. Response, wait until metro construction is done. Then you can bring bus lane back. See the irony of it? Right? So I think it's a lack of awareness and understanding. We have to sympathize and empathize with them. Right? And I often tell this to people that ask me, this is all about behavioral change of people, of politicians, of media, all of these people. Back in the 80s, those of us that grew up, we know that, second-hand smoking is not seen as a danger. Somebody will come sit next to you and smoke, right? Even your uncle or a friend of your dad or whatever. That was okay. Is it okay today? Why? Because everybody knows that may cause cancer. Somebody is smoking, my kid may get cancer. The mom or dad will thrash that person and ask them to leave the room. So how did that happen so quickly in a matter of few years? So I think a similar awakening has to happen in terms of understanding the need for public transport or changing the thinking. And no vote bank can be effective unless it is organized. So people need to know that this is what 18 lakh people want. If I don't do this, I may lose the election. That is the incentive for politicians. More than the money, the vote is the bigger incentive. The money is needed to get the vote. But if you are saying I'm give the vote without the money, then that becomes a priority. So many positive political reforms happen because of the threat of losing the vote. So how do you convert this energy of bus users or demands of everybody? Yashoda ma'am, our Helidaga, we also went with to Kangeri in 2017 as part of the Bus Bhagya Beku campaign. So everybody knows that Bengaluru has no share autos, right? Chennai has share autos, Hyderabad has share autos, Bengaluru has no share. Wrong. Go to Kangeri, she will show you share autos. Go to Vasa Road, she will show you share autos. Yalla kade share autos nu ide. 6 people, 8 people will sit, pay 10 rupees, 15 rupees, go there. and they so organized that they make sure that there is the between the bus and the autos there is a coordination to maximize the business for the auto. Sorry, madam, correct alva? This is all we learned first hand. It only happens when you go there. You talk to any old man sitting in any ATM in Bengaluru, go to Shivaji Nagar, find out how they come to their ATM as a security guard. And like Shaheen was saying, their salary is 8 to 10,000 rupees. They walk. It's 5 kilometers, 7 kilometers, 12 kilometers. Usually they would have come from Mandya or some other city, some other village. They walk to their security guard job. And this is a thing that we were, completely shattered to understand this. And they are not walking for exercise. Somebody tried to, blame malnutrition to dieting, right? This is like that. You are denying them mobility and they are walking and they are malnourished. They don't have money to do this. And this is that serious issue. And then we talk about apps and, other things, that how do you reduce the personal vehicles and all of that. I'm sorry I went on the campaign mode because the whole Greenpeace thing got me into the campaign because they are the only one put up that big painting on the bus lane, save this bus lane. I can't tell you how happy I felt when I saw that because that's what is needed. And I will answer your question also, I'm sorry. There are 3 things that are needed to attract anybody to take the bus. Okay, in my opinion, considered opinion, having been a bus user, car user, metro user, all of that, and talking to so many people over the years, 3 things are needed. One is affordability. If the bus is not affordable, a lot of people will not take it. You heard it. I don't need to tell you anymore. It's a serious issue. A lot of people like us cannot connect to this thought. Like we cannot connect that people are dying of hunger. Nobody here is dying of hunger. Right? We cannot relate to that. But many people in the city are not able to afford the bus. Even after the low fares are not reduced, the biggest achievement we did as bus campaigners in the city is to make sure that the bus fares don't go up. I'm sure Shaheen would agree. That's the best success we could get. Otherwise they are going up and up and up. We stopped that. I think we should at least be happy that that much has happened. We stopped the bus fares from further going up because they were on that trajectory. Our bus fares are so high, the two-wheeler is cheaper than bus. What kind of a silly public policy is that? How can you have a bus fare cheaper than, expensive than two-wheeler? Why will I take a bus? I will take a two-wheeler. As simple as that. That's the trajectory we are on. And thanks to Mr. Surya Sen and his predecessors, that kind of thing has now stopped. And all of this is not in the control of BMTC either. It comes from somewhere else. We know that. Now, there are a lot of people that don't care about the fare of the bus. That's not the reason why they don't take the bus. What is the reason? Reliability. This is the number 2 reason why people will take the bus. Reliability means I need to know when the bus is coming. I need to know there is a bus when I get off the metro. I was talking to somebody earlier today and they got off the Kengeri metro station and there is no bus. And now you're paying 100 rupees for the auto. Somehow that happened. And what is that, right? There is no chance of doing that. And then there is the whole access. I completely agree with Professor Ashish Verma when he says that the access to bus is walk. Well, if the footpath is broken and there is all kinds of nonsense on the street, it's so scary and dangerous. Why would you do that? You will book an auto to go to the bus stop and you will automatically book the auto all the way to the work. Gone. So whose problem is it? It's the BBMP's problem. That the walkability is an issue there. So that's a reliability is about that. And then the whole integration between the different forms. If we do this and now I don't want to steal his thunder, but he's working on the new BMTC tracking app. Hopefully he'll talk about it more today. When that happens, if I went to Dublin in 4 years back, first time in my life, last time in my life. Same day I could figure out from my office how to go to the hotel using bus. Using the app. The app showed me the bus is there. You start walking now, I start walking, the bus came, I got in, got off. I am not a resident of Dublin, but I use the bus just like that. No app downloaded. Everything is online and my colleagues told me and that's it. So you need to have that. And the final thing that makes people use the bus. We made an estimation that 6 lakh people work on Outer Ring Road between Silk Board and KR Puram. 6 lakh people. And Shaheen talked about how many people are employed in the IT sector. In Bengaluru, only 1.2 crore jana there, right? Depending on who we talk to, it can be 1.4, 1.2. The government workers are somewhere 8 lakhs. 5 lakhs in Bangalore. Okay. The IT engineers may be 8 to 10 lakhs. Okay. If IT engineers are a vote bank, government workers are also a vote bank. But we need both, right? If you want to increase the speed of the people that are working in that outer ring road by introducing bus lane or bus priority lane something, then if you give them accessibility, reliability, affordability may not be an issue for those users, then they will say they will be sitting in the car and watching the bus fly by them. Okay, I need to try this bus at least once a week. That thought will come in. And then they will sit in the bus, and then a lot of people that experience the bus for the first time come back with great enthusiasm and say it's not as bad as I thought. It's very good. Our buses are not bad at all. Because bus has a stigma in India, right? But the BMTC buses are king of Indian buses. You go to any city and you go to BMTC bus quality will be 3 times better than any other bus. And I have tried buses in every city in India and most of the cities. That's because we have a very professional organization with really good metrics and quality and all of that. It's not that they don't have issues, there are many issues, but in terms of quality of bus service is fantastic. The closing doors, for example, people die for that. Every single bus of BMTC has that. And the new buses, if you get in, there is an emergency button and so many other things. So if you're already providing this, if you add the reliability and the speed to it, by speed means bus lane. Today, bus priority week, bus lane, bus rapid transport. You give speed to the bus and you make it predictable. Then today, an employee in RMZ EcoSpace, which is unfortunately in use for wrong reasons, if they come out of the office parking lot to the outer ring road in their car, it takes 45 minutes. Please ask any of your friends, they will tell you. Okay? From the car parking lot to the outer ring road is 45 minutes. Why? Because so many floors of parking, everybody is one behind the other at the peak hours. If he is sitting in the office and he opens the BMTC app and knows that the next Volvo is coming to me and this is the bus stop in front of RMTC under that beautiful red walkway, they will, instead of 45 minutes, it will be 2-minute walk to the bus and zip through the bus lane and get to Jayanagar or wherever they are going to. And that's what we need to work towards. And none of this will work unless we first convince the politicians to do it. Because we can talk about solutions all day, but the problem is not ideas and technology. The problem is something else. And that's what should be the high priority.
Well, that was very detailed and comprehensive. Surya sir, I want to ask you now, the bus priority lane ran for a couple of years before there was the issue that eventually led to the bollards being removed. You did tell us that there were significant findings. I think you worked with the IISc to get the significant findings as to how the bus priority lanes benefited the commuter and benefited the drivers and conductors. Like it significantly improved their mental health because they were not stuck in traffic with the huge vehicle that they drive around. So if you can just throw more light on what were the findings of that.
Yeah, I think for sure Ashish will be a better person for that. But still, anyhow, both Dr. Ashish and also Dr. Abdul, both of them have closely worked on that particular project. And everybody must have travelled in the outer ring road, at least would have seen the bus priority lane when it was operational. So many of you would have taken the bus also during the bus priority lane was there in the outer ring road. And see, BMTC is a very small part of the whole Bangalore infrastructure. So bus priority lane was a beginning, and it is still a beginning only. And as you know that we have already identified 12 major corridors of bus lanes, and DULT is still working on trying to get it implemented in other places at least, because this bus priority lane was closed because of the metro construction, but it is not the case in other bus lanes. So we are all hoping that DULT will take it up, and they will be doing it, because Anyhow, it is on discussions. Every time we discuss with the highest level of the government, we discuss this bus priority lane issues. Even the traffic police is also very much inclined, saying that if you make buses very affordable and very easy to public, then our work will drastically reduce. So that is the comment even which we are receiving from the traffic police also. So these are all some things which vouch for the bus priorities or the priorities that which we give for the public transit per se. So as you have mentioned about the ease of doing work for my drivers and conductors, especially for my drivers, because they are operating lots of mechanical stuffs in the bus, like gears, the clutches, the accelerators, the brakes. So when you are given a bus, it is very difficult for as a driver, as a person, to manage it, maneuver it and all. In this case, bus priority lane has given them a very good ease of doing that work. So first thing is about the mileage that the bus gets, because as we all know, we don't have to brake much. We can get easy momentum, so the momentum will increase your mileage of the bus. And second thing is the ease of doing business for the conductor, because we know that where to stop, where not to stop, and how to regulate the passenger entry, passenger egress, because in any case you all must have traveled in a bus. So whenever there is a traffic jam, there is a scenario where people get in and people get out. So even for the drivers and conductors, it will be very difficult to manage the crowd in Indian scenario. So sometimes it will become very unruly that people want to get in, people want to get out wherever the traffic is there, wherever it is stuck. So these are some things which will induce kind of a discipline to the transit system per se. So these are things which will evolve only when these kinds of importance is given, priority is given to buses. So these are some of the observations that we have done in this particular experiment which we have done. Yeah.
Also, I mean, we mentioned earlier that there was some amount of backlash that we continue to receive when we put out this petition in favor of the bus lane out there. One is the issue of convenience, Lavalisa, as you pointed out. But then there's also this issue, sometimes at least it comes across as the bus and bus related issue is not my problem, because it is not something that I use, so it's not my problem. Air pollution is my problem, but bus is not my problem. All of them come together under the same umbrella. So, Shaheen ma'am, would you like to throw more light on the perception of how we look at public transport from the bus users' perspective and the non-bus users' perspective, and how can we bridge that gap really? Of course, convenience is one thing that Alvalisa pointed out, but how do we change that story?
So actually, one common factor that all commuters Bangalore travel mado ellargu agreement iro ಒಂದು ವಿಷಯ ಟ್ರಾಫಿಕ್. So ಆ ಒಂದು perspective ಇಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ nobody can disagree that traffic is a problem in the city. So that's one common denominator that we can. So then how do we solve traffic? Whether you are a car user or a two-wheeler user or a bus user, all of you are stuck in traffic. And so if we can look at it from that point of view, that is one common denominator. We need to reduce traffic. How can we reduce traffic? Like Ashish said, bus is the most efficient mode, because bus actually carries most people per road space. Maximum number of people per kilometer of road space or per meter road space in compared to any other mode. So if we want to reduce traffic, we have to go to bus. That is one thing. The other problem that everybody faces in the city is also, I mean, nowadays more people are concerned about pollution, about environmental sustainability, climate change and all of that. So we have to also look at different segments and see what appeals to them and try and use that kind of communication with them. If environment is important for you, you should look at bus because it reduces pollution, it reduces emissions and all of that. If traffic is a problem for you, then also you should look at bus because it actually uses space most efficiently, and therefore if we have more buses, we will have less traffic. If you want to reduce accidents in the city also, I mean, the fewer vehicles you have, the less traffic you have, the less chances of accident. So whether it is health, safety, environment, traffic, from any of this point of view that we look at Bangalore city and we want to make the city better, I don't think we can find any quarrel that bus is the solution. We may just have to communicate it differently to different set of people because their priorities may be different. But I don't think if we engage in that kind of an exercise, anybody can really disagree that or find fault with bus really being the answer to mobility. there are also like, you know, again, travel time. If we have, I mean, there's no way you can reduce travel time with any other mode. With bus, at least with bus lane, you have the possibility of being able to travel faster and smoother and all of that. So. So from any of these points of view, we want to actually have a better quality of time. How much time do we actually spend on the road today? Do we really want to do that? I mean, if I look at my own social life in the last so many years, I see a significant difference I mean, I don't go anywhere because of traffic. I try to avoid going out because of traffic. So ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಮನೆ ಹೋಗೋದು, ಮೂವಿ ನೋಡಕ್ ಹೋಗೋದು, ಥಿಯೇಟರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗೋದು, ಏನಾದ್ರು ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಅಟೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಹೋಗೋದು, ಈವನ್ ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಹೋಗೋದು ಕೂಡ ಅವಾಯ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಇಷ್ಟು ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ನಾವು ಎಷ್ಟು ಜನ ರೋಡಲ್ಲಿ ಇಷ್ಟು ಟೈಮ್ ಸ್ಪೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಲೈಫಲ್ಲಿ ದಿನ 2 hours ರೋಡಲ್ಲೇ ಇದ್ರೆ ಅದು ವಾಟ್ ಪರ್ಸೆಂಟೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ ಅವರ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಆರ್ ವಿ ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಆನ್ ದ ರೋಡ್? ಇದು ಬೇಕಾ ನಮ್ಗೆ? ಯಾವ ತರ ಸಿಟಿ ನಾವು ಕಟ್ಟಬೇಕು? ಸೊ there are many ways in which we can look at this question and find reasons why for various segments or segments of people why bus should be a solution or bus should be made attractive. So I mean, briefly, that's my response. But
can I just add? Yeah, I think we have to keep in mind that promoting and more use of public transport is an integral part of, as you also covered, is an integral part of our mitigation strategy for climate change impact. It's also an integral part of the air quality action plan that the NGT and other organizations have been asking cities to make. Besides solving the core problems of transportation, which is traffic congestion, travel time delays and so on. So whether you are a user or a non-user of public transport, it does have a bearing on your own life. The air that you breathe, the health impact it has on yourself, everything is connected to our mitigation strategies, and public transport promotion and usage being an integral part of it. You can't say that bus is not my headache or it's not of my concern. In a more simple way, this time we had this taste of extreme flood, and poor and rich people alike. Yeah, villas got flooded. Yeah, they had to leave their Mercedes behind and fled in tractors. Now you should think or have an idea that this water coming in my house is eventually because of some of my own choices, or some of the choices that all of us make related to how we travel or how we choose to travel, how and what kind of mode we travel, and why we neglect public transport and don't look at it from the angle of climate sustainability. So the brunt of climate, of course the reasons are not just climate for these flooding, the infrastructure mess and other things are there, but how everybody's life is being impacted because of not many people or not large amount of people using public transport is through these changes that are happening around us, and it impacts our life. So eventually at the end, what travel choices we make, how we prefer to travel, what mode we choose, what things we choose to neglect, have a bearing on our own life. I think that's a point that all of us need to be very clear and be aware, so that we understand that whether you yourself use public transport or not, it's an issue or a matter of priority for all of us. Thanks.
One more point, just one more thing. See, actually, I used to ride a two-wheeler before. One big change in my life that happened after I shifted from two-wheeler to bus is the way it freed up my mind. The tension of driving in traffic, or you don't realize it when you are experiencing it. You don't realize what is that stress that is adding to your mind. That it is something that I realized only after I started using. Like suddenly, it is like a knot in your head is untangling. that is the freedom I experienced after I started using the bus. I don't have to worry about, traffic, or, I can get out and, okay, I just need to, in fact, at that time I used to use a monthly pass also regularly. So I don't need money. I don't need anything. I can just get out of my house with the bus pass and go anywhere in the city. The way it frees you and frees your mind, and it actually gives you time. Of course, bus is crowded, and you don't always get a seat, and it is difficult to use your time productively, but we all complain about the time it takes by traveling in bus. But I found that I have less stress when I use the bus. I don't have to worry about traffic or anything. The time that I get in the bus, I can either read depending on whether I get a seat or not, or I make calls to my family or whatever. All of those things that you do in your free time at home or whatever, you can figure out what are the ways in which you can actually use that time more productively. There will be ways in which once you're ready to use it, there'll be ways in which you can find use of that time. Actually, the same problem exists even with garbage, for instance. When you tell people to segregate, they're like, okay, this is somehow difficult or whatever and all of that. But once it's a mindset. Once that mindset changes, you will find that you can make this also work. You can make segregation work easily once your mindset changes. What is it? It's just about not mixing. You're not saying you take the waste and separate it or anything. You're saying don't mix only to start with. So it's just a thinking of, separating it really. Similarly, when you start using a different mode, it may be a big change for you, different from what you normally do. When I used to ride a bike, I used to think, okay, I can get 10 things done. I'll say, okay, I'll stop here also, I'll stop there also. Maybe you'll start planning your life also better. That might actually lead to more efficient use of time. So it is all about having a mindset of being willing to make that change, and you can find ways to make it better. It really frees up that stress of driving for those who are actually driving.
We'll come to the Q&A later. Sure. Yeah, keep the questions so that we'll have a Q&A session where we can have that. So yeah, thanks Shaheen and Ashish Verma. So for the certain topics, you touched upon how public needs to make certain choices. And since we are talking about reimagining the public bus, we all come together as a group, as a city, as everyone together with the public as well, how we can reimagine this. So I wanted to ask Srinivas and Suresh sir about how, there are certain initiatives I wanted to ask, I'll touch upon it. So how public can play a role in this, how public can participate in this process, and what are the steps public can take, and how they can be part of this whole movement where we can start improving the public transport and start increasing the numbers. So I just wanted to touch upon Srinivas. You are working with Janagra, and you're working with ward committees and decentralization and public participation and everything. And Suresh sir, you are also, PMTC is trying to work on decentralization, which I'll come to about. So I feel decentralization is an important initiative where this is taking down to the ward level and to the local level, where the public are coming and public are raising their concerns at whether it's the bus stops, whether it's the quality of buses, if it's the bus routes and various other things. So how can the public come and participate, and how can they actually take the steps? So first I'll talk to Srinivas and then we'll go to Suresh.
Yeah, that's a great question, and often not asked or talked about. See, when Yashoda Madam talks about her concerns about not having bus, not having connectivity and all of that, we need help. She shouldn't have to wait for a Greenpeace event to air her concerns. No, this happens maybe once a year, or some bus pranikara where they holds another event, in February, and then Greenpeace and all that. So at the end of the day, these are public transport, public service providers. And if they don't understand what public wants, then what do they exist for?
I think you can.
Yeah. So thankfully in Karnataka, in our constitution and Karnataka Municipal Act, we have this beautiful concept called ward committees, where citizens and local government comes together once a month, Actually, twice a month now because of the pandemic. But imagine that you live in a particular area and that area is mapped to a ward in the city. And the people that work in the ward are an engineer, a health inspector, a tax collector, a revenue officer, somebody who provides the bus, somebody who provides the traffic policing, law and order policing, somebody is taking care of lakes in your ward. All of these people are supposed to sit in front of you like this once in a month. Imagine that all these people are ward level government officials and all of these are residents of the ward. This is the ward committee. And we have it in Bangalore. It's hard to imagine, you have to pinch yourself, but it's actually real. Right? In September alone, we just counted 376 ward committee meetings happened. The unfortunate thing that in many wards there are more officials sitting than citizens because they are not aware, they are not participating in all of that. So the BBMP commissioner, the current BBMP chief commissioner is extremely proactive about ward committees because decentralization is the way to deal with the Bengaluru's problems. So now more and more ward committees are happening, and Yashoda madam, for example, can go to the ward committee of Kengeri, wherever she is, and raise the issue, and imagine the BMTC depot manager is sitting there. And he or she understands the concern of the resident. In this case, it's a whole group of government workers, and therefore the depot manager takes it back to BMTC and has a discussion, and now what do we do? This is how it's supposed to work, and it doesn't today. And we are trying to make that happen. And there are, while the ward committees are running, the quantity of meetings is good, but the quality is not so good. And the quality is not good because there are not enough citizens involved. Again, now the onus is coming back to citizens, unfortunately. In still a developing country, in a still a evolving city, a lot of people, when we did a survey, what's the name of the Prime Minister? 93% people could name that. What's the name of the Chief Minister? 87%. Name of the Mayor? Okay. Is the Chief Minister responsible for bus? No. Is the Chief Minister responsible for, Prime Minister responsible for bus? No. Is the Mayor responsible for bus? Somewhat. In Bangalore we have another problem there. But people are also not aware of the roles and responsibilities of different layers of government. So this is why we are trying to bring a whole series of events and encourage people to participate in ward committees. So many people in Bangalore have been working on it. As part of Janagraha's work that I am now doing, along with a whole bunch of other organizations in the city, civic organizations, public organizations, we formed what's called a Bengaluru Ward Samiti Balaga, which means a ward samiti cohort or a union. And on Sunday, 16th October, day after tomorrow, we are meeting to figure out what has been our experience with ward committees, how can we strengthen them. And one of the biggest successes of the ward committee has been the periodic conduction of the ward committee itself, because that wasn't happening earlier. Now it is happening. And now we are hoping that, and as a result of the proactive nature of Mr. Surya Sen, we now formed a group called Friends of BMTC, of which Sharath and all his colleagues are part of. Many of you are part of. Pravar sitting here has been making beautiful posters, and somebody else is making videos. So many people are becoming like self-appointed marketing managers of BMTC. This is what is happening right now, right? And they're getting a lot of free work, hopefully, which is good. I love it, right? And that means citizens are promoting bus for other citizens. So why can't BMTC be part of the ward committees where they listen to the issues that Yashoda madam brought about or somebody brings about? And we were told that this is happening, so I'll let sir complete the answer.
Yeah, thanks Srinivas.
Depends on which ward you live in. Yeah, you need to know your ward. Yeah, this is another civic knowledge that you need to get. Yeah. Yes. So we have tools for that. Usually the best thing I tell people is walk near the end of your street, look at the board. It will have the ward name and number on it. You can see the name of the board. There's a little complication because the wards have got remapped now, but contact me. That's all I can say right now.
ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ನಾನೊಂದು ಆ್ಯಡ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಒಂದು BMTC ವಾರ್ಡ್ ಕಮಿಟಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಇದೆಲ್ಲದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಇಂಪ್ರೂವ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ಆದ್ರೆ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಕೂಡ ಅವ್ರದೇ ಆದಂತ ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿಗಳಿರುತ್ತೆ. BMTC ಬಸ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಯಾಣ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಕಂಡಕ್ಟರ್ಗಳು, ತುಂಬಾ ಡ್ರೈವರ್ಗಳು ತುಂಬಾ ಟೆನ್ಷನ್ ಆಗೋದೇನಂದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ಹಿಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಸ್ ಹತ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಭಯ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಬಿದ್ದೋಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಕಾಲ್ ಜಾರತ್ತೆ, ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಇಶ್ಯೂಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಅವರು ಕೂಗಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಟೆನ್ಷನ್ ಇದೆ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಲ್ಲ. ಆ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿಗಳನ್ನ ನಾವು ಹೇಗೆ ಅರಿವು ಮೂಡಿಸ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ. ಟಿಕೆಟ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಅವರು ತುಂಬಾ ಟೆನ್ಷನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾರೆ, ಯಾರು ಟಿಕೆಟ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ, ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಇದೆ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಹೇಗೆ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ನಿಭಾಯಿಸ್ತೀವಿ, ನಮ್ಮ ಹೊಣೆಗಾರಿಕೆ ಏನು ಅದನ್ನ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ನಾವು ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಬಸ್ ಪ್ರಯಾಣಿಕರಾಗಿ ಅಥವಾ ನಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೂಡ ಅದನ್ನ ಬೇರೆ ಜನರಿಗೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಅರಿವು ಮೂಡಿಸ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಎರಡನೇದೇನಂತಂದ್ರೆ ನನಗೆ BMTC ಕಂಡಕ್ಟರ್ ಡ್ರೈವರ್ 85% ಇಸ್ ಗುಡ್. 85% ತುಂಬಾ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಜನ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಈಗ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಏನಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಮೈಗ್ರೆಂಟ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಜನ ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ವರ್ಕರ್ಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ಗೆ, ಗಾರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ಗೆ ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಲೋಕಲ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಲೋಕಲ್ ಬಸ್ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಹೆಸರುಗಳನ್ನ ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಅವರೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಎಜುಕೇಟೆಡ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಅಲ್ಲ. ಟಿಕೆಟ್ ತಗೋಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಇವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದಾರೆ ಮುಂದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಇವ್ರು ಬಳಸೋ ಭಾಷೆ ಹೇಗಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಕೆಟ್ಟದಾಗಿ ಆ ಮೈಗ್ರೆಂಟ್ ವರ್ಕರ್ನ ಬಳಸ್ತಾರೆ. ನಾನು ಯಾವಾಗ್ಲೂ BMTC ಬಸ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಓಡಾಡುವಾಗ ವಿಲನ್ ತರ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತೀನಿ, ಯಾಕಪ್ಪ ಅಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀಯ ಅಂತ. ಅವ್ರು ನನ್ ಮೇಲೆನೆ ಜೋರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಇರಿ ಮೇಡಮ್ ನಮಗೂ ರಿಸ್ಕ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ. ಅದು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಆದ್ರೆ ಲೋಕಲ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಗೊತ್ತಿರ್ಲೇಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನಾವ್ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗತ್ತೆ? ಇಂಥ ಸಿಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ನನಗೆ ಕನ್ನಡ ಒಂದೇ ಬರೋದು, ಕನ್ನಡ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್, ಅದೇ ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಗೆ ನಾವು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕಾಗತ್ತೆ? ನಾನು ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಲಂಡನ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನನ್ನ ಬಸ್ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ನಾನು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲೇ ಕೇಳ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯನಾ? ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಹೇಗೆ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ. ಆ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಗಂಡ್ಮಕ್ಳು, ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು ಬಂದಿರೋದು ಮೈಗ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿ ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ತುಂಬಾ ದೊಡ್ಡವ್ರಿಲ್ಲ. ಆ ಮೈಗ್ರೆಂಟ್ ವರ್ಕರ್ಸ್ ನ ಹೇಗೆ ನಡೆಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಡಿಪೋಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಗೆ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಸೆನ್ಸಿಟೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕಾಗತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ. ಎರಡನೇದು ಚಿಲ್ಡ್ರೆ ಇಶ್ಯೂ. ಚಿಲ್ಡ್ರೆ ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಆ ಚಿಲ್ಡ್ರೆ ಇಶ್ಯೂಗೆ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ಆ ಬಸ್ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಈ ಬಸ್ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಳಿಸ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳಾಗ್ಲಿ ವಯಸ್ಸಾದವರಾಗ್ಲಿ ಇಳಿಸ್ತಾರೆ. ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಟೆನ್ಷನ್ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ ಮುಂದೆ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಪೆನಾಲ್ಟಿ ಹಾಕ್ತಾರೆ, ಟಿಕೆಟ್ ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವ್ ಹೇಗೆ ಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕಾಗತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ. ಈ ತರ ಇಶ್ಯೂಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರಯಾಣಿಕರನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಇನ್ನು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಉತ್ತಮ ಪಡಿಸಬಹುದು ಅಂತ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಎರಡನೇದೇನಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿ ಹೆಸರಲ್ಲಿ, ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿ ವಿರೋಧಿಗಳಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ, ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿ ಹೆಸರಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ರೋಡ್ ರಿಪೇರಿಗಳು, ರೋಡ್ ಕೆಲಸಗಳು. ಇವಾಗ RR ಗೇಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಗೆ, RR ಗೇಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಗ್ನಲ್ ಮುಕ್ತ ಮಾಡಿ ಒಂದು ಫ್ಲೈಓವರ್ ಕಟ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೊರಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸಿಗ್ನಲ್ ಮುಕ್ತ ಮಾಡಿ ಫ್ಲೈಓವರ್ ಕಟ್ಟಿದ್ರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ? ಅದು ಯಾಕೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ನನಗೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇವಾಗ ಎಮರ್ಜೆನ್ಸಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಆಂಬುಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಹೋಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಇವಾಗ್ಲೂ ದಾರಿ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಮುಂದೇನು ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದು ರಾಜೇಶ್ವರಿ ನಗರ ಪೇಪರ್ಸ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಬೇಕಾ ಸಿಗ್ನಲ್ ಮುಕ್ತ ಆಗಂತದ್ದು? ಈಗ ಅದು 3 ವರ್ಷ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ 3 years ಬೇಕು ಅದು ಮುಗಿಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಈ ಕಡೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರಂತೆ, ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿ ಕಡೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರಂತೆ. ಈಗ ಜಾಮ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಜವಾಗ್ಲೂ ನಾನು ಕೂಡ ಹೊರಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನನ್ಗೆ 11 ಗಂಟೆಗೆ ಆಫೀಸ್ ಇದ್ರೆ 10 ಕಾಲಿಗೆ ಮನೆ ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ನಾನು 9 ಹಳ್ಳಿ ತಲುಪಕ್ಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದಾನೇ ಜಾಮ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ನಾನು ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾಗಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಬರಕ್ಕೆ 8 ಗಂಟೆ 5 ನಿಮಿಷಕ್ಕೆ ಮನೆ ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀನಿ ನಾನು. ಅಷ್ಟು ಟೈಮ್ ಬೇಕು. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಆ ಬಾಟಾ ಶೋರೂಮ್ ಒಂದಿದೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬಂದು 9 ಹಳ್ಳಿವರೆಗೂ ಜಾಮ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇದು ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇವಾಗ ಬೇಡವೇ ಬೇಡಪ್ಪ ಈ ಸವಾಸ. ಎಲ್ಲಾದ್ರೂ ಅಡ್ಡದಾರಿಲ್ಲ 50 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಹೋದ್ರೂ ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಮೆಟ್ರೋಗೆ ಹೋದ್ರೂ ಈ ತರದ್ದು ನಮ್ಗೇನೆ ಶುರುವಾಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೆ. ನಾನು 85% ಓಡಾಡೋದು ಬಸ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ. ನಾನು ಬಸ್ಸನ್ನ ತುಂಬಾ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತೀನಿ. ನನ್ನ ಬಸ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ನನ್ನ ಬ್ಯಾಗಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಒಂದು ಬುಕ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೀಟ್ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದ್ರೆ ಕೂತು ಓದಿ ಆರಾಮಾಗಿ ನಾನು ಹೋಗಿ ತಲುಪಬಹುದು. ಆದ್ರೆ ಇದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಹೇಗೆ ಸರಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಮೇಡಮ್. ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಾತಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ತುಂಬ ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು. ಸುರೇಶ್ ಸರ್, ಇದು ಫಾಲೋ ಅಪ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡೋಣ. ಇದು ಶ್ರೀನಿವಾಸ್ ಜೊತೆ ಡಿಸೆಂಟ್ರಲೈಸೇಷನ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ. ಸೊ BMTC ಏನೇನು ಇನಿಷಿಯೇಟಿವ್ಸ್ ತಗೋತಾ ಇದೆ ಟು ರೀಚ್ ಔಟ್ ಟು ದ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಹೌ ಟು ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮೋರ್ ಟು ದ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಹೌ ಟು ಇನ್ವಾಲ್ವ್ ಮೋರ್ ವಿತ್ ದ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ಸ್ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಟೇಕಿಂಗ್? ಸೊ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಯು ಟಾಕ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಇಟ್?
ಮೊದಲನೇದಾಗಿ ಈಗ ವಾರ್ಡ್ ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ಸ್, ವಾರ್ಡ್ ಕಮಿಟೀಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ BMTC ಹೇಗೆ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, BMTC ಹತ್ರ ನಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಒಂದು 46 ಡಿಪೋ ಇದೆ, 6 ಝೋನ್ ಇದೆ, 46 ಡಿಪೋಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ 6 ಝೋನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ವಿ ಡಸಂಟ್ ಆಪರೇಟ್ ಆನ್ ಏರಿಯಾ, ವಿ ಆಪರೇಟ್ ಆನ್ ರೂಟ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಇಷ್ಟು ವರ್ಷ ಏನಾಗ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು, ಇವತ್ತು ಕೂಡ ವಿ ಆಪರೇಟ್ ಆನ್ ರೂಟ್ಸ್. ಈಗ ಒಂದು ಡಿಪೋ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜರ್ಗೆ ಅವ್ರ ಹತ್ರ ಒಂದು 200 ಬಸ್ಸಸ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಅವರದ್ದು ಚಿಂತೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಆ 200 ಬಸ್ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ರೂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ವೆದರ್ ದಟ್ ರೂಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟೆಡ್ ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್, ವೆದರ್ ದಟ್ ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ಇಸ್ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್, ವೆದರ್ ಹಿಸ್ ಬಸ್ಸಸ್ ಆರ್ ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಪ್ಯಾರಾಮೀಟರ್, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಹಿಸ್ ವರ್ಕ್. So he is always bothered about a straight line, so wherever the bus travels. So we again there is a long time demand also from BBPV and other public, and we also thought that the need of the hour is this, that as depot managers they have to be responsible for a jurisdiction. So when we were thinking about that, we wanted to fix jurisdictional responsibilities to the respective depot managers. See, on a BMTC's operation perspective, this is not a very apple to apple thing, but still we wanted to keep it in such a way that they have a jurisdictional responsibility. So now in Madidibi, all the 46 depots locations were taken, and we have overlaid some geoinformatics into picture, and we could able to come up with ward level jurisdictions to each depot manager, and outside the BBMP limits the Hobley level jurisdictions are being assigned to the depot managers, because BMTC is not only about BBMP. We operate more than 4,000 square kilometer outside BBMP. That is the major thing which we need to understand. See, we are not only city transport, we are more of a suburban transport. So when we talk about that, we have lots of developments happening outside the city that we need to cater also. So what we did, outside the BBMP limits, Hobley level, within the BBMP limits, ward level, we have segregated the jurisdictions, and we have assigned a couple of wards to the each depot manager. So in that case, certain jurisdictions have a depot within that, and certain jurisdictions may not have a depot within that, but there is a depot manager assigned to that jurisdiction. So in that way we have created, and we had a first round of discussion. So we will be again submitting it to the public also for comments and all, and we will be officially notifying that this is the jurisdiction in which our people will operate. In the same way, BBMP also operates at the zone level. So we have a system of zone also. So where we have assigned our zonal commissioners to the zonal commissioners of BBMP also. In that way, there is a two level of jurisdictional allocation from BMTC side also, in which all the people residing within that zone, within that ward, have somebody to contact to if there is a case of public transportation need or public transportation issue with respect to BMTC. So this is the basic thing that we have come up with. So when you talk about public engagement with BMTC or public engagement with bus activists, so Srinivas has very clearly pointed out that there is a vote bank which is available outside, and how you are going to channelize that vote bank and how you are going to aggregate that vote bank is something you have to see. But when BMTC is considered, as Srinivas has mentioned, we need lots of creative people coming into us and to give us suggestions. So that is why we have created the Friends of BMTC, and we are having almost a hourly discussion with public. So that is how it is now being carried out, and we are getting lots of suggestions, lots of route changes, lots of contents, creative contents developed, so that it reaches the last person. And one major thing that we need to see here is who is using the bus as of now. Like what Shaheen has mentioned, these are the people who doesn't know social media. These are the people who doesn't have even a single hour to come and spend with either you or me, or these are the people who doesn't even know whom to approach. So that is the people that we are working with. So how we are going to reach those people is the challenge for BMTC as of now. So what is the mode of communication? Like people like mass media are here, who is taking it through their papers. That is something which is there. And apart from that, we don't have any other channel in which we directly communicate to public, apart from our very small people who are standing in the bus stations, who are standing in our ticket counters. So this is the basic relation that we have with the public. So how best we can improve the public relations from BMTC side through these public volunteers is what we are now trying to encash upon. So these are some kinds of sittings that we are trying to participate in, and trying to request people, in which people can onboard us in different perspectives, different capacities, and help us on achieving it. So even for example, we have a small user group for testing of our mobile application also. So anybody can board in on that and they can test and they can give it. So we have lots of these kinds of engagements recently started so that we can have a better user product in the end of the day. So these are some things which can be coming from the public side. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
ಸಿ ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಈ ಜ್ಯೂರಿಸ್ಡಿಕ್ಷನ್ ಡಿಪೋ ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನಾನೊಂದು ಜೋಡ್ಸಕ್ಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಈಗ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿದರೆ ಪೊಲೀಸ್ದಿದೆ ಜನಸ್ಪಂದನ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್ಸು, ಬೆಸ್ಕಾಮ್ದು BWSSB ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಅದಾಲತ್ಗಳಿದೆ, ವಾಟರ್ ಅದಾಲತ್ ಅಥವಾ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಸಿಟಿ ಬೆಸ್ಕಾಮ್ ಅದಾಲತ್, ಈ ಥರ ತಿಂಗಳು ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಇಂಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಫೋರಮ್ ಇದೆ. BMTC ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ದಂಗ ಆ ಥರ ಒಂದು ಫೋರಮ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಈ ಜ್ಯೂರಿಸ್ಡಿಕ್ಷನ್ ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್ ಬರೋದು ಐ ಆಮ್ ಸೀಯಿಂಗ್ ಇಟ್ as also a space like that for BMTC to regularly interact with public. So we have been requesting Surya sir also, and I think they are also in agreement that in every depot or every jurisdiction, if we can have a monthly meeting where commuters can come and interact with the depot officials. So like he said, ತುಂಬಾ ಜನ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಮೀಡಿಯಾ ಅಥವಾ ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಒಂದು ಇಮೇಲ್ ಐಡಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಇದು ಫೋನ್ ನಂಬರ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಕಂಪ್ಲೇಂಟ್ ರೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ, ಬಟ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಜನ ಅದನ್ನ ಕಂಫರ್ಟಬಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲ ಆ ಥರ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ. ಸೊ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಪರಿಚಯ ಇರೋದು ಓಕೆ, ನಾವು ಒಂದು ಕಡೆ ಹೋಗಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಮಾತು ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು, ಅಫಿಷಿಯಲ್ಸ್ ಮುಂದೆ ನಾವು ಹೇಳಿ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ತಗೋಬಹುದು. ಸೊ ಈ ತರ ಒಂದು ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ BMTC ಇಂದ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ಏರಿಯಾ ಅವರು ಯಾವ ಜ್ಯೂರಿಸ್ಡಿಕ್ಷನ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸಿಬಲ್ ಇದೆಯೋ ಆ ಏರಿಯಾ ಅಲ್ಲಿರೋ ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ರೆಗ್ಯುಲರ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಇದೆ. ನಾವು ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ BMTC ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಕೆಲವು ವರ್ಷ ಮುಂಚೆ ಶಿವಾಜಿನಗರಲ್ಲಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಕೆಂಗೇರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬಸ್ ಅದಾಲತ್ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ, ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಒಂದು ಡೆಮಾನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ. ಬಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಅದಾಲತ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಟಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ people won't rely on that system. So